Formula One makes its way back to China for the first time in a very long time. And while we have raced there before, it will be our first time in ground effect cars. And there are quite some surprising upgrades to go over that will be coming to this Grand Prix. This Grand Prix will be a sprint weekend, so the parts aren't going to be as big as Japan. We'll go over some of that as well, and what the big teams and even the small teams are bringing here, which could help with a bit of a different pecking order. Before getting into the bigger part of the video, I wanted to thank you guys for 34,000 on the channel. It's just a crazy number to say, and thank you for being around and giving me a chance to entertain you. If you are new here, I'd love it if you'd subscribe, and in the meantime, give it a like. But let's get started with the upgrades video coming into the Chinese Grand Prix. I want to first talk about what teams could be potentially bringing spec-wise when it comes here, because the big teams in general aren't going to be bringing as many parts to our knowledge. McLaren has their awaited upgrade package waiting for them in Miami. That is supposedly what they have said, and they say this upgrade package apparently isn't going to give them enough pace to actually catch Ferrari. We'll have to see. McLaren hasn't brought anything significant yet. They've had a couple of changes to their rear wing, but nothing really huge to the car to say it's been a big change. So McLaren's Miami package hopefully is big and hopefully it exceeds their expectations. Aston Martin brought a completely different package to the Japanese Grand Prix. Their car definitely improved. Their race pace looked better. I think they're on par with McLaren. And honestly, I think the Chinese Grand Prix is going to be hell for McLaren. And I think Aston is going to do a little bit better here than we expect. It's an interesting Grand Prix. With the upgrades that they have, we'll have to see how their short corner speed is right now, because this Grand Prix, especially in sectors 1 and 2, is pretty much all short corners, and they're long short corners, which we know with the McLaren is a really big problem. The Aston loved it last year, and the Mercedes in particular this year loves it. The packages for Mercedes and Aston Martin I think will be the exact same that we saw from Japan. It would make the most sense. It does have those super long straights, and you would think, oh, maybe they're going to go with a lower downforce wing. But no, we should expect a medium to a high downforce wing because sector 1 and 2 makes up so much of the lap time. And while that is a huge straight, you give up way too much lap time throughout sector 1 and 2, especially in the race. It could pay dividend in qualifying, but honestly, with how the race is and tire degradation being high, Mercedes and Aston should have the same type of spec, and Ferrari could be bringing a higher downforce wing. Now, in Japan, it was reported on the upgrades report that Ferrari brought a higher downforce wing. Some people are saying this is a spec from last year just to kind of go within the cost cap and not really waste it on upgrades. We could see this wing here in China, or we could see the exact same spec of car. This is a Grand Prix where I think Ferrari can really excel at. They've been great this year, and they could put up a big challenge to Red Bull. If they bring a couple of parts, nothing will be significant here because of it being a sprint weekend, and Ferrari is still waiting on that huge Imola upgrade package. But the car should be very strong here, and we could see some changes to the rear wing. That's the only spot I'm kind of expecting them to have something. The Red Bull team brought a big upgrade package as well. Another cooling outlet that they claim it to be that's pushing more towards the rear of the car. They closed up those actual gills that are close to the engine cover, have provided different airflow through the interior to bring it more towards the rear part of the car, and it was quite a significant upgrade package. Helmut Marko says the car was working perfectly and the upgrade itself worked really well. And the Chinese Grand Prix should be another strong one. They have the straight line speed, they have a car with a lot of downforce, but we can expect a more competitive Ferrari here than we did in Japan. High speed cornering has always been Red Bull's super strong advantage, even with this new car, and Ferrari's gotten better, but in short corner speed, especially these long short corners, that's where the Ferrari's been really good. So we'll have to see if this SF24 still has that super strong strength that it even had in the SF23. And obviously the F175 was extremely strong in cornering speed, especially short corners. So hopefully they can still bring that type of race pace here and we get a super strong fight towards the top. But now let's talk about what's officially coming here. Some upgrades and something that's really interesting to note. The actual Racing Bulls team, they are bringing something and it's been talked about a lot. Now, I made a whole entire video on Daniel Ricciardo, specifically why his driving style is not working, and in general, the problems that Daniel's been having in 2024. They are bringing something here that either is going to help him mentally, maybe he really is spot on. It has happened in the past that a chassis being brought to a driver can change their feel in the car. Maybe there really was something they weren't seeing. There's a story about Kimi Räikkönen talking about the chassis being broken in a particular part. The team could never find it. They brought it back to the factory, and exactly where Kimi explained that part to be broken in the chassis, they found it there, and it actually made a significant difference. Now they've brought it back to the factory multiple times, and even the sporting director over there, Alan Permain, has said that this chassis change won't really do anything for performance, but clearly to just get it off of Daniel's mind and get him in a more racing mood, it makes sense to make the change. So a chassis will be coming here for Racing Bulls. This is apparently their first chassis that they're going to have as like a spare for Daniel Ricciardo, and we'll have to see if that really matters for him in performance. This Grand Prix has been one of his strongest Grand Prix throughout his career, so I really hope we see a more revived Daniel Ricciardo here. But the biggest upgrade, and a pretty significant one, is coming from the Haas team. Can you believe it? The All-American Haas team is bringing upgrades to what I can't even call anymore a butter shredder. The actual VF24 is a pretty strong car. They were not really supposed to be that good in Japan. I did think they were going to be okay with Racing Bulls, but they were really bad in high-speed cornering last year. They got better in high-speed cornering. They're still super strong in the top speeds, but short corners is where the car is much better. It's been a lot of years since Haas has brought a big or anything upgrade really within the first 5 races of the year, and they're bringing something to China on a sprint weekend. Now, from the information we have right now, there's nothing specific that we know, but we do know it's only going to Magnussen's car. Some people might think this is unfair. Why doesn't Nico get it? He's been the better driver this year. I wouldn't really say Nico's been that much better, and also without K-Mag, they wouldn't have scored in Saudi, and K-Mag was a team player also as well in Australia, so I think it makes sense. He's been with the team for a very long period of time. Maybe his feedback with Haas is a little bit more appreciated than Nico's currently at the moment, and they want to see what K-Mag says for the car. He actually liked the upgrades of last year a lot more than Nico did, and they reverted specs before. The last upgrade they brought in Coda brought him no performance, and they say the simulator is actually telling them a slower time than what they're actually getting on track. So it's like the reverse case from Mercedes. So Haas is in a very good position to maybe shock us all, maybe even get within the points and compete. Considering how Lance Stroll has been in qualifying in the race, there is a point up there now always for a Racing Bulls or a Haas to step in there. It's going to be a fight between those two teams. I definitely think so for this Grand Prix. And the Haas car bringing upgrades, to me, excites me. I want to see what they bring and how much this package is going to play dividends in the long run for them, especially considering their race pace has been much better than that of before. It's not a lot of upgrades. We're gonna be getting a lot of upgrades after this Grand Prix, but it's worth noting these little surprises we're getting, and I'm quite excited to cover them on Thursday with you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like, subscribe, it'd mean the world, and thank you for being around. Peace.